Forrest Davis, and welcome to the fourth episode of the Forrest Davis Show. We have a fantastic program here tonight. Mark Goloby, who is the Republican write-in nominee for the Republican ballot on the 2022 midterm race for governor here in the state of Texas, will be my guest this evening. He is a true, tried and true patriot. I fully believe in him. I fully endorse him as a precinct chair. I see many candidates every day, and I see the full gamut. I know when someone is just talking or they actually believe what they believe. And Mark Goloby believes what he believes. So unfortunately, we couldn't get in his full interview in this week's podcast, but stay tuned next week for part 2 of my interview with him, where we'll be talking about the school boards and the education issues of our day and what the governor of the state of Texas would need to do to fix those. So sit tight, stay tuned. This is a great interview, and look for part 2 next week. First of all, thank you. And I believe this is episode 4 of my newly formed podcast. I'm still trying to work out the kinks of the Forrest Davis Show. And I will be posting this on social media. I will tag you, Mark. So without further ado, Mark, please introduce yourself. And also, please, be able to pronounce your last name. I think I may be mispronouncing it. So go ahead and do that, and then your background and why you're such an important person going into this election.
My name is Mark Goloby. It's Goloby, and I've been in the wireless industry for a number of years. My company, TC Technologies, does the Internet of Things for oil and gas companies and other applications. I've been very, very active my whole life in grassroots efforts and grassroots campaigns. And so that's a lot of, from a political background, that's what I've focused on. Most recently, I spent about 5 years on the Chapter 313 of the Texas Tax Code. And this is a provision that allows school districts to go out and abate property under the name of, or under the disguise of, economic development. You go through there, and if you ask a proponent, they'll tell you, oh, they create jobs, which of course that's a nice thing, and they create $65,000 a year jobs, and that's also a positive, until you find out that the taxpayers, are getting the bill for $200,000, and there's no return on investment in a situation like that of a 10-year agreement of taxpayers paying $200,000 for $65,000 a year job. So we fought that, and we beat it back this last legislative session. It actually expired. And after it expired, the comptroller decided that he's going to change his transparency and his reporting on it. At which point I said, well, and nobody else was, so I said, I'll primary and see if I can't change your mind. And so the taxpayers were successful again. We were able to do that. So we won one for the taxpayers in getting rid of the program. We won for the taxpayers for keeping the transparency open. And then finally, when this race came around, it also became apparent that somebody should lobby for the Texas taxpayers in this governor's race as well. And I didn't see a grassroots candidate on the ballot, and decided that the Texans deserved a grassroots candidate on the ballot. So I went in and registered and got with the Secretary of State and got my name as a write-in candidate.
I appreciate your service. I think off what you just said, there could be a couple follow-up questions. First of all, before I forget, and then we can talk about like what you're doing now and you're pursuing. But when it comes to the comptroller and things of that nature, like what you've specified over the taxpayers and things of that nature, I've been hearing our current nominee has, I believe, Glenn Hager. Is that correct?
Glenn Hager, yeah,
Yeah.
he ended up
Yeah.
he got the most votes, but again, my effort wasn't about that. It was about
Right.
changing the transparency. So
Right, right. Well, the reason why I mentioned his name is I don't know rightly or wrongly, and this is a question I'd like you to pontificate if you can. He's been getting some heat over certain establishments that, like, just name it as it is. They're
yes,
they're
the drag
hosting
queen
drag queen,
issues.
yeah,
Yes,
stuff.
yes.
So
Uh,
what's your perspective on that, and what should the Texas Comptroller be doing or not doing in regards to that?
Well, it's kind of typical of the whole administration we currently have. There's always a reason why they can't do anything. Okay, everything is somebody else's fault, and they never can find any way that they can enforce the laws, and they can always find a reason why they can't enforce the laws because, well, that's just too hard.
Right.
And I don't know if we have anybody who into doing things that are too hard there. So the he absolutely should be weighing in on that, just as pure decency, okay? Just for the fact that this is not an appropriate venue for children to be at. A year ago, if somebody would have walked into a female strip bar with these same children, all right, there would be police call, there would be things done, all right, to get those children out. The
Right.
fact that these happen to be uh, uh, dressed up men, all right, makes no difference. The lewdness and the inappropriateness of it holds true. And there are, to me, there's probably delinquency of a minor laws that could be enforced. There's probably some pornography for minors, distribution of
Right.
pornography for minors that could be enforced. Whether the comptroller reaches out to other enforcement agencies to go through there and help so he can play his role in the comptroller's office, but rely on the local uh, law enforcement community to help to augment his efforts. So again, I mean, it's just a matter of I don't know why these guys sit on the sideline as much as they do.
Well, from what I
There's no
heard,
political cost to just sitting around doing nothing, I guess.
I completely agree with you, Mark, and that's why I've wanted to have you on tonight because I know you're a fighter and we need that desperately in whatever office it may be. But from what I heard, or the excuse that was relayed to me was you have to let the obscenity happen first because you can't bring charges or prosecute a crime that has not happened. So we have to expose these children to this perverseness and allow the event to go on than to do anything from the comptroller's office to sanction the business that we can't do it preemptively. And I kind of understand that somewhat, but at the same time, like their intentions are loud and clear, and it doesn't make sense to scar these children and to sexualize them and then say, okay, then we will do something with the Texas State Comptroller's office about whatever bar there is and any licensing or whatever type of sanctions that can be put on. Like to me, like that the chicken and egg thing, while the children are suffering, like to me that is kind of the what you're saying. It's people punting the responsibility and saying, well, we can't do it, someone else can, and while all of a sudden our children are being exposed to this. So I don't know if you've heard anything similar to that, but that's what I've heard, and I don't think
Yes,
that's a
well, to me
sufficient excuse.
again, he sure seemed what I understood during the COVID shutdown. All right,
Yeah.
he sure was able to go through there and flex his muscles on collecting
Yes.
taxes for businesses who had been shut down by the governor.
Yes.
Okay, and then, but hey, you still owe these dollars. Hey, man, I'm how am I supposed to, what's my cash flow? How am I supposed to go through there? But the comptroller didn't seem to hesitate in that effort.
Right.
Um, and again, I guess in that logic, All right. So if you find out someone's going to go to somebody's house and kill them, you sit on the lawn and wait and say, okay, well, I can't really do much till they shoot the guy. Then
Right.
I'll go in and arrest him. And I wonder if that's really how the law truly works. And again, if the comptroller is having some of those issues, what's sad is that the governor is so completely quiet, even not even
Yes.
using his bully pulpit to be able to sit there and
Yes.
call in to focus this, and then go through there and see how he can again help uh, uh, the comptroller's office with his uh, uh, DPS officers, the Texas Rangers, or some other means. All right, because from what I understand, the Antifa and other of these radical groups have shown up to protect these goings on, but no
Right.
presence from the state law enforcement, all right, to counter these type of things. Texans should be asking themselves, why is it? Can I relate kind of an interesting story to you?
Yes. Go ahead.
Okay. So I'm out doing my campaigning, doing some block walking and other things that you do, right, in a campaign. And I knocked on this one lady's door, and she was elderly, so she was very pleasant. But we're talking, and she's kind of going through saying, well, she doesn't really know about this effort that I'm doing, and has some doubts about it, and that's fine. I mean, that's all open up. But then I'm saying, well, let me ask you something. How is it that four mayors on Martha's Vineyard exercise constitutional authority they don't have, right, to kick people off of their island, as opposed to the governor of a sovereign state who seems to not be able to do anything? And her answer was very telling to me. Well, they're Democrats. When she was talking about the people on Martha's, well, they're Democrats. So do we have such a beat down uh, uh, psyche of ourselves that we just say, well, we can't do it. We're just Republicans. We're just Republicans. We can't do anything. You got to be a Democrat. If you want to get something done, you got to be a Democrat. I mean, that's the message. And this lady was, like I say, she was sincere, and she was, elderly. But you wonder, okay, if that's how that woman thinks, that's how long she has been beaten down by a group of people who, the grassroots, have kept these people in power in the majority for 20 years. But you wouldn't know it by the grassroots agenda being implemented. And that, again, that's very fundamental to why am I doing this? What's the important reason? Um, it's not just to be disruptive, all right? It's to go through there and say, I mean, just today or just yesterday, I guess it was yesterday, but in the paper today, right? After the Texas convention, I think there's 2 or 3 mentions against casino gambling in the platform of the Republican Party.
Yes.
All right. And today, what has he done? He's taken all of those, all that effort, everything else that was done, and said, hey, grassroots, hey, Texas Republicans, I've got a receptacle for that. All right. And that's where I put your thoughts, I put your work, I put what you believe, right in there, and swirly down it went. Okay. And that to me is reprehensible. And the disdain that he exhibits for the grassroots, for the taxpayers, for Texans. You don't sit
Right.
there and do what he's doing on the border unless you have disdain for the property owners on the border.
Right. And I agree with that. And I guess now we can, I'll ask questions about specifically your race and your writing candidacy. I just first wanted to, before I forget, address the comptroller question I had, because first of all, that's currently going in the news right now with like the drag shows and all that, as well as, you ran for it. And a lot of, uh, a lot of the electorate does not understand what the comptroller does or what they do or whatever. And so I felt like that was kind of necessary to kind of unpack. But now we can get more specifically, and I guess a good segue to this is I guess you're alluding to what Abbott has done recently. You said something that happened yesterday. I did not catch that. It had to do with casino gambling. Is that correct?
Yes, yes, he went through and started hinting around and it's front page of the Chronicle, okay,
Okay.
saying
So
that
is he
a
endorsing that or trying
turnabout
to?
on casino gambling in Texas.
So he's trying to bring that in.
Yes,
Yeah.
he's yes, and so you're sitting there going, what is he trying to
Yeah.
bring in? Who is he playing? Who is he playing? All right, is he because when you get into it, and if you go to the article, like I say, if you can get over there to the Chronicle and take a look at it, it's
Okay.
quite interesting. And the donor list of people that's on there,
Right.
all wanting, all right, the proposing casino gambling, and then you turn right around and the practicality of it. So you're sitting there going, well, he's playing those guys too. He's playing those donors. Yeah, give me a bunch of
Right.
money. I'll get up and give you some lip service. Sure, sure. So now he's playing he's playing his big casino donors as well for fools. So
Yeah. Yeah.
you shouldn't take it personally.
Well, I mean, he's just a typical politician at this point, and they will wax and wane to whatever donor has their pocket at the moment, apparently. But the casino gambling, I believe that is something that is more nefarious than people may know. I think there's been a reason why Texas has not had those establishments in our state, and I may be wrong. You can correct me if I'm wrong, but I think there's a lot of um, trafficking and prostitution and some other stuff that tends to go hand in hand, usually not formally, but with the crowd that does go to those establishments. And it's an overall, I guess, degradation to our culture and other things. And they're the libertarian so-called libertarian point of view is like, well, it could bring in more tax revenue and things of that nature. But I don't think that is a good. Well, first of all, we're being taxed too much. I think the state of Texas has like a what
27
37
billion.
37
27
billion
billion.
surplus. So that we have enough tax revenue already. We don't need to be taxed on anything else more ever. But in addition to that, I don't. This is where, as a Christian constitutional conservative, I disagree with the libertarians that there are certain policies and legislation we should enact to protect our traditional values and not to legalize in order to try to figure out some sort of tax revenue that could be gained off that. I believe there's a certain moral fiber that we need to, I guess, protect and to assert rather than just kind of go with the flow of the times and try to make as much taxes off of it. Is that a viewpoint that you're similar with, and what could end up happening if we have legal gambling establishments here in the state of Texas?
Yes, my website is goodgovernance.today, and good governance is something that I propose all the time. All right, and to me, the answer to that is the government, all right, the sovereign state promoting vices, all right,
Yes.
is not good governance. It's that
Yes.
simple. This is not how you have good governance. I mean, so and you do have it in Las Vegas, but I mean, what do you stop then? Oh, as long as we can make a buck off of it, okay. Well, there's all kinds of things we can do and make a buck off of it.
Right.
I got questioned about the marijuana issue and the tax
Yeah.
issue, and I went through and I said, well, let's take a look at California because oh, California, okay, great, let's look at California where they went through and they promised all this tax revenue from the marijuana, okay, and then you go through there. Well, after a while, guess what you ended up having? You ended up having now a black market of untaxed marijuana. So it's legal, but it's illegal because now it's
Right.
not taxed. So now the state of California says, well, then we'll just lower the tax rate for the legal marijuana. as opposed to trying to go through there and tax the marijuana that's supposed to be taxed.
Right.
And you just go through there and you say, so you don't get the revenue. We've heard horse racing. Oh boy, that's a
Yeah.
panacea. We're going to make money hand over fist. You just can't imagine how much tax revenue we're going to get from horse racing. That was one of the things I was going to look at the comptroller to find out just exactly how the accounting is for all these horse, but I think it's 2 or 3 horse racing tracks that we have.
Right.
And then the next thing was down came the lottery, right? Here we go.
Right.
Oh boy, we're going to have tax revenue. Oh, this will do great. Okay. Meanwhile, nobody's property taxes are going down. The casino guys are, oh yeah, see, we'll have all this revenue and we'll be able to lower property taxes. However, right, I don't know. I don't seem to be, I see the tax, quote unquote, tax revenue. I don't see the corresponding reduction in property taxes.
Right. Well, I mean, that's you hit the nail on the head. There's always the trade-off of saying, well, we'll tax over in this area, we'll do this, but we'll offset it over here. And government is not ever about living within their means. That's not, and it's not just our country, but over the history of, I think, world history, governments tend to be these bloated, bureaucratic entities. And obviously, the founders had in mind a smaller government with checks and balances that is of the people, by the people, and for the people. That is how we have a successful nation and republic. It's not by doing these little shuffle games with money and be like, well, we can tax over here and allocate over here. And this, they almost always never follow through with those promises. Republicans, Democrats, it doesn't matter what it's by their name. Usually the government representatives, they just want what essentially is in their best interest, not their constituents' best interest. And we see that a lot here in Texas. We have a state where we've held the governorship, the lieutenant governor, the attorney general, the state house, state senate for 20 years about, and the Texas taxpayer is not getting much for what they've been, excised in their taxes, as well as a poor southern border, high crime, and various other issues. So we need desperately people that will serve the people of Texas and not pass the buck. And as what you've alluded to in the earlier discussion, not the whoever it is, they always pass the blame to someone else. It's always someone else's problem. Whenever they themselves, in whatever jurisdiction their office holds, could be doing at least part of the solution to the problem. But most times not. And also specifically with the governor, you mentioned the bully pulpit of the governor. And to ask a question about this is, if you were to be elected governor, how would you utilize the bully pulpit to go about these issues? We talked about obviously that, but the border, other important issues of Texas, how would you use the bully pulpit of the governorship?
Well, many of these issues, the governor has more control. All right. You can have all the power in the world. Okay. But if you choose not to use it, all right. When you look at these things, I mean, one of the things is, okay, let's look at the Texas Education Agency, right?
Right.
He appoints the commissioner. 6 years. 6 years. Look at Texas public education, the pornography, the grossness, the critical race theory, the in again, out again. Oh, we don't do it. We do it. We sort of do it. We sort of don't do it. Okay, it's legal. It's illegal. Okay. I mean, all we have a TEA, a TASB, and a TASA, which I'm not sure what that one is. Okay, Texas Association of School Administrators, or TASA. Right. Okay. Those three combined, all right, avert the parents, subvert the legislature, and pervert the children. That has to be addressed. That has to be stopped. That to me is, if the border has to be looked at, number one, okay? Then when we secure the border, the next thing is going after this education agency and getting a handle on this. Because if you had that over that, these drag queens wouldn't be as bold, right, in their presentation, because this stuff is being presented in the classroom. These kids are sitting there in the first, second, third, fourth grade, okay, getting this filth, all right? I mean, there's no reason for teenagers reading sexcapade books about teenagers, okay, at the 7th, 6th, 7th, and 8th grade. All right, there's nothing uplifting about it, okay? The stories are typically very demeaning of the children involved, demeaning of the children who are then victimized, really. These are really stories about victimized children, right? So to me, I mean, when you ask me, there's so many things that can be done that I can, as a governor, that can be enacted. It'd be a while before I'd just be sitting there on a bully pulpit beating away at something, because there's some things that have to get done. And again, I mean, when we look at, you know, our fellow Texans are losing their property rights and their livelihoods. You and I are talking, and our southern border is moving north.
Yes.
It's going to be on the, you know, it used to be when Texas was first settled, there was an argument as whether it was the Nueces River, okay, or the Rio Grande was a border of Texas. All right. Under Abbott, it's going to become the Nueces River. That's where the border is going to be. And effectively, that's almost where it is now. And he can only look at himself. Only look at himself. He's got all the sovereign authority, right? The Texas border and the U.S. border being the same is an issue of geography, not sovereignty.
Yes.
The state of Texas and Oklahoma fought over a border claim, all right, that was settled in the year 2000 by the Supreme Court. A border claim between Texas and Oklahoma. In the year 2000, we're not talking about going back to 1800 or something. We're talking about the year 2000, all right? So the border and the sovereignty and the protection of the border, the sovereignty, all right, of protecting the citizens and the property of the citizens within your border is, I mean, what more priority should any ruling person have than to protect the lives and the property of the people who live in the state that he wants to vote for me? But I'm going to abandon you. But as soon as this, I'm going to throw you over the boat here. As soon as you vote me for the captain, then you guys are going all under the ocean.
Right. I completely agree with you. I completely agree with you. What's going down? Well, it's really affecting all the counties of Texas, and actually the whole entire nation. Now every nation is a border state because of our failed leadership. Because we won't secure the border, illegals are coming here, but they're not stopping here. They're going to the Midwest. They're going to the Pacific coast. They're going to New England. They're going everywhere. And so the whole nation suffers because that we don't have a true leader as governor. And but specifically here in Texas, multiple counties, I think up to 33 have now, it could be more since last time I've checked, declared
I want to say it's 34. Is it
30? Maybe
34? Yeah.
They may have added one since I looked. Have declared a formal invasion, which that should happen. I live in Johnson County, just south of Tarrant, so the DFW greater area. But we've declared an invasion because it's hurting our small communities, and we're hundreds of miles from the border. So it is very much there, and even more so once you get down, you know, like we said, south of San Antonio. It is it's World War III down there. So the cartel definitely has a presence here. They're running drugs. They're running the sex trade down there, and they have compounds up here, and it's ugly. And
this is for Mike McCall. I want to say 2 weeks ago there was a Texas Public Policy Foundation had a Zoom. Well, they had a meeting and it was on Zoom as well. All right, Congressman Mike McCall, he says the cartels know our laws and abuse our laws.
Yes,
it's $150 billion a year revenue stream for them. The cartels know our laws and abuse our laws. Now, you know who doesn't know our laws? Do you know who doesn't know our Constitution? Right? The governor of the state of Texas.
Yeah.
He doesn't know the laws. He doesn't know his constitutional authority. I guess the mayors should be the ones down there. They have obviously 4 mayors in Martha's Vineyard, all right, seem to have plenty of authority to do what they want to do. So,
Right.
and they're Democrats. I'm sure there's some Democrat mayors down there along the border they should just do what their Democrat friends do up there in Martha's Vineyard, because and as the woman said, well, the Democrat mayors could do it because they're Democrats, so they could actually patrol their cities better than it just doesn't make sense. It's
Well,
very
yeah. I don't. It's all been politicized, and that's the sad thing about it, because there
because
are
of lack
people.
of leadership. There's a vacuum, and in that vacuum, all right, becomes the all the political conjecture,
Yeah,
and so
I
that's what
agree.
flows into a vacuum.
And I want to tell you specifically uh, the issue that got me to support you over Abbott. And I encourage everyone to vote on election day. There's less potential for fraud and everything else, but I'll be election judge on election day. So I voted early because I'll be busy that day. But so I have already voted for you, Mark. I just want to,
Oh, well, thank you.
yes,
Appreciate
just
that.
sprinkle that in right quick. But the border, I mean, we can talk about, the taxes and everything else, but the border, I think, is issue number one here. Well, in election security, it's like 1 and 1A. But and also Abbott has failed at that too. But only wanting to canvass or to relook at 4 counties of the 2020 election whenever there was fraud everywhere. But nonetheless, um, the
Some of what you contributed to in 2020, in 2020. If you want to
right.
go back and look at some of the things that he and the Secretary of State were doing in the state of Texas, yeah, and there's some documentation to it as well.
Right. So I just want to say, I think we maybe get cut off, I guess Zoom is short or whatever. So I just want to say one last thing, and then have you the ability to close. And then for people to be able to find you, find your website, find how to donate or support you. So my last point is how I came full circle, instead of just doing what was expected out of me as the typical Republican of, oh, well, we didn't get our way in the primary, but we have to be these good old Republicans that sort of support the R's no matter how bad they are, because God forbid we have a Democrat. So I was drinking that Kool-Aid too, but what really got me off the couch and said, no, I have to. This is my line in the sand. I have to buck the establishment of the party and to go with my conscience, is this border issue. And specifically, I have a source, and I don't want to name him. I usually name my sources, but he's under a gag order right now, and he is in a very precarious time. But that being said, he's in the Rio Grande Valley. He's a border patrol agent. He knows what's going on, and he took his intelligence. I don't know, sometime back. I don't know whether it's this past year or whatever. He took that to Abbott and his advisors, and Abbott sat there smugly, and instead of enacting, and a lot of this had to do with the worst of the worst, the drugs, the sex trafficking, all the small children that's coming over here, the unaccompanied minors that they've been lost in the system, and they're going to live a life of abuse, if not worse, and no one knows where they are, and that's by the thousands, if not the millions. All this is going on and is well documented, and was presented to Abbott. And I think Abbott said something along the lines, I don't care if every county declares an invasion, I still won't. And what also is in the back of my mind is there is documentation that Abbott has his bio or his self on the World Economic Forum. So whenever I see Abbott, I don't see a Republican. I see a globalist. And I see someone who will not do what the grassroots tell him to do because he's already been bought off. And that now I realize that I see I'm wasting that vote. And that vote much more should be earned towards you, someone that will stand for what is right. So that is how I came to my conclusion. And with the last remaining time, I'll allow you to kind of give your closing remarks and where to find you and how to support you.
Okay. Well, I do appreciate it. And Forrest, thank you very much for the time and making this opportunity for me to visit with you and to talk to your audience. One of the things that, yeah, my website again, goodgovernance.today, www.goodgovernance.today. Not today works, okay? So it's a real one. And there you go through there. You'll see what I talk about at the border. I talk about a sales tax cut, all right? There, we have this huge surplus, and he's going to give it half of the 27 billion back, maybe through some kind of a. Hey, look, you know what? How the state doesn't collect property tax; the state collects the sales tax. So when you cut the sales tax, you benefit all socioeconomic levels. All right, you benefit the people on fixed income. You help take a bite out of inflation. All right, all those things can happen. Texas can afford it. The Texas can afford it because we've been overburdened with taxes. I talk about school issues. I talk about things that we should be doing in the schools. So to me, I mean, those are on my website, and also there is a donate button. And yes, be happy to. This has been a grassroots and very very much self-funded effort, to get the message out, and again to get people to understand that I get it. Abbott's the lesser of two evils, but no one can tell me how much. And when you look
Yeah.
at it, okay, lesser what? Lesser? Beto's going to do lesser on genital mutilation of minors. He's going to do lesser about pornographic stories in the schools. He's going to do lesser about college boys playing in girls' sports. All right, and Beto's going to do lesser on the border. I mean, do we even know whether these buses will stop on November the 9th? Oh yeah, we've got these buses. We've got 4,000 come across, and 40 if they want to. All right, can take a bus ride to DC or New York
Sorry for that abrupt ending. Mark just ran out of time, but he will come on next week to talk specifically about our educational issues here in the state of Texas and what the governor's role is in fixing a lot of those elements. So, yes, just to wrap up, he hit the really important points of using the governor's office to do much more than what the governor has been doing. And really securing the border has been the issue of tonight's episode. But there's much more to being a governor than just that. So stay tuned for next week where Mark will be my guest again. And I'm looking forward to another fantastic show with Mark Goloby. Thank you, Mark, so much. I look forward to having you next week. I will sign off now. Stay tuned for the Forrest Davis Show next week as we air episode 5.